to Chameleon by frickin' Herbie Hancock. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, boom, 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 boom. I'm like, what the hell is this? And it just, later on, it goes into some heaviness, but it's this very boring, plodding riff, but at least there's some metal to it a little bit. And you go, okay, this isn't good, but it's not. Let's see where the rest of this album goes. And unfortunately for me, folks, Sorceress is as good as you get. There's Will-O-the-Wisp, which is a very good song as far as music-wise. It's sure as hell ain't Opeth, but it's not, the weird, yes, Genesis, Deep Purple, 70s prog rock crap that they apparently are okay with doing. And on top of that, it just really bothers me that, like I said before, Michael Ockerfeldt has some of the best growled vocals, if you're a growled vocal fan, that I've ever heard. And he doesn't do them anymore at all. Like, at all. They are absent. It doesn't happen. Period. The entire album is clean. And again, it's not that he can't sing clean, but if you're an Opeth fan, that's not the band you fell in love with. Stop it. Stop it. Now, it almost makes me think that Michael Ockerfeldt is like turned into like, maybe it's like Paul Stanley, but the opposite. And what I mean by that is maybe Michael Ockerfeldt in his age no longer can do growled vocals. So rather than doing them bad, he just doesn't do them anymore, and he sings clean. Unlike Paul Stanley, who can no longer sing Kiss vocals, but continues to do them anyway. You know what I mean? Like, lick it up! Lick it up! Stop it, Paul. Maybe that's what Michael's doing. I don't know. But it's just, to me, that's a big shame of the whole thing, too. Is not only musically are they entirely different, are they just not even close to the band that I fell in love with and was one of my top 5 bands of all time at one point. But they're no longer even that, but now their music just isn't any damn good. It's weird, it's trippy, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's not what I want from Opeth. Just really, really disappointed. Biv, what are your thoughts? I'm done.
Wow. You had a lot to say there. Well, I know how you feel. As a very, very early Dream Theater fan, I mean, going back to 91, 92, and falling in love with a band for their first few CDs and their sound, and then watching them go from that to every freaking album has to be a concept album to, you know what I mean? Like, can't we just make a series of kick-ass songs and put it on a CD? So I feel your pain. I definitely feel your pain. I know where you're coming from. And to your point, if you can't do the growling vocals anymore, and that's part of your sound, and your fan base is expecting that and wanting that, then bring in a growling vocalist just to do the growling parts. There's no shame in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do something.
Do something.
And I bet he can still do it. He just doesn't, because it doesn't fit the music they're doing. Because the music they're doing is shut up! Stop!
That sounds like some acid jazz to me.
Yes, it's very jazz influenced, and I'm okay with jazz. I just don't want Opeth doing damn jazz. Stop!
One of the hardest parts to do is to separate yourself from the image that you have of your favorite band. And I had to do this with several of my favorite bands that switch sounds like this. And I had to ask myself, when I listen to a brand new CD, and I've asked you this before, Jason, if you had never heard Opeth before, and you heard this band for the very first time for what it is, and not having a frame of reference, would you still feel the same way?
Oh, absolutely. Because if I listened to Sorceress by itself, not knowing who these guys were, I would get 5 minutes into the song Sorceress and say, oh, okay, well, there's that. And that'd be it. I'm dead serious.
Fair enough. When I listen to it, of course, one of the things this show has done for me is it's, pardon me, kind of forced me to listen to genres that I didn't really listen to in the past. to expand my horizons, if you will. A case in point, earlier we reviewed Far Beyond, which was actually one I picked. And so when I listen to Opeth, I'm like, okay, this is one of Jason's bands. I know he hasn't liked him lately, but I know he loved him early, and I wanted to give it a fair listen. And I, too, did give it a fair listen. I went all the way through it a few times, and I wasn't a fan of their early work, as you know, because I don't normally listen to growling vocals. But I'm not a fan of their new work either. I'm really not.
Yeah, it's either weird or boring. You know what I mean? Either parts of it are just weird sounding, and if it's not weird sounding, it's just boring. Like, okay, where's this going?
What was the review we did a few episodes ago? It was from another band who also just changed their sound. Was it Redemption?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Circus Maximus initially.
Circus Maximus, that's who I was thinking
when
of.
you look at Havoc and you're going, but dude,
Havoc, that's what it was.
Well, Havoc is greatly different than the other stuff they've done. To your point, let's go back to what you were saying before, Biv. If you've never heard this band, what would you think? If I'm being honest, I would listen to Havoc and go, they're not bad. You know what I mean? Now, I'm going to judge it a little bit more tough because they're freaking Circus Maximus, you know? But I would still go, okay, there's some stuff here that's not bad. Where this, I can't even say that about, you know? And actually, the more I listened to, and we talked about this a couple episodes ago when we saw them in concert, the more I went and listened to Havoc in prep of hearing them in the show, the more I actually kind of like it. It's not great. It's still their weakest album, but there's still tinges of the Circus Maximus you know and love. A little bit. That is completely gone in Opeth. 100% gone. 100%. Not even close.
Well, I never liked him to begin with. I don't like him now. I gave it a 5 out of 10.
Dude, you are nice. I can't believe you gave him 5. You are being very, very generous. You're like that guy. You're like the American Idol judge who's like, you're not that good, but man, keep doing what you're doing. You're the Randy Jackson of reviews on this.
No, I'm not giving that to not hurt their feelings. I'm giving it to him because I thought there were parts that were fair, right? It's not horrible. Maybe it doesn't live up to Opeth expectations, but it's not god awful. It's not something I go out and buy, but I'm giving it a 5.
I'm 2.5 out of 10, and that's lucky. One for seriously. I should ask me next episode what I think of the album. It may be worse. But right now, it's 2.5 out of 10. Just an epic, epic disappointment if you're an Opeth fan. And if you're just a metal fan in general, what in the hell is this? Anyway, I'm done. That's Opeth.
Hey, this is Steve Conan. You're listening to According to Metal. Turn it up.
That's the song Deja Voodoo off the album Deja Voodoo from Crystal Ball, a next review we're doing here on According to Metal. And like we talked about just a little bit ago, Opeth was my band from back in the day, and Biv will check him out because we do a show together, and he's not a big fan, and that was kind of my suggested review, and so Biv does it. Same can be said about Crystal Ball here. This is definitely more up a Biv's alley. I would be lying if I said I had much background or much interest in Crystal Ball going into this review. However, I have lots of thoughts and opinions on this album, but I do that later. Biv talks about him now. Biv, what did you think of Deja Voodoo?
Well, this is the 9th CD by Crystal Ball. The 4th was Steve Magini on vocals. If you're not familiar with Crystal Ball, if you are a fan of Pretty Maids or Goddard, anyone kind of in that hard rock, not quite what we consider heavy metal vein, I think that's a fitting description, then you probably did Crystal Ball. Good, just party band. We talked about that earlier. We're talking about Airbourne. There's nothing offensive about Crystal Ball. There's nothing where, you'd have it on and a friend be like, dude, turn this off. This sucks. You'll never have that with Crystal Ball because every song is usually well written, well constructed. It's solid. It's well performed. But like I said, this is their 9th CD. It's on Massacre Records, which is a huge label for them, I think. But Deja Voodoo, the title track, starts it off, which we just heard. Great opening riff, I think. Gives a good start to the CD. I know it's very important to Jason. Director's cut has kind of a darker lyrics and a faster pace, a heavier pace than you hear from most Crystal Ball tracks historically. And Scott Leach just really nails it on guitar. An excellent tune as well. Never a Guarantee is very good. Now, kind of a personal aside here. Jason, did you really listen to the lyrics of Never a Guarantee?
A little bit, yeah. Chorus-wise, certainly, because it stands out to me. It's actually my favorite track on the album.
Did it make you think of anyone in particular?
No. What am I missing?
Because when I heard this, it made me think of Ryan Allen, who was a guy that, for those of you that don't know, Jason and I...
Dude, good call. Now I'm going to have to go listen back to that song again.
It really did.
That's a personal friend of ours that unfortunately passed away way too early. So
yeah, he passed away when he was 29 years old from cancer. And you always hear when somebody dies, "Oh, he was the greatest guy ever." And
dude, it almost makes us want. It almost makes me want to stop like this review and go listen to it and then come back. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I'm going to do that after we're done recording this. Honestly, that's a good call.
But normally when you hear that, the guy's, pretty much an asshole and they're covering for him. Ryan was that guy. He was that guy that had like the perfect outlook on life. He was well balanced. He was always positive, never had a bad word to say about anybody. And I mean that, genuinely mean that. And that song really just, if you've lost someone very personal in your life, that is a tune that will definitely take you back to some of the best memories that you had with that person. But anyway,
it's funny not to you're talking about that song. Honestly, to me, that's my favorite song on the album, and it has nothing to do with the lyrics. I just think musically, it's awesome. It's a great track. Like,
it is.
Out of all, when I'm listening, well, I'll get into that here in a bit, but that was one of the first tracks as I'm listening to the album in the track order that it is, that made me go, whoa, that's really good.
It is.
Yeah. Anyway, continue. But it's funny you mentioned that just from a lyrical content standpoint, but overall, just as a song, not just the lyrics, my favorite song on the album. So it's funny we're talking about it.
Home Again is the next, I think the next track after that. And, it's one of those ballads that you kind of picture yourself at the concert. You're holding your lighter up in the air, if you're old enough to remember that, before the days of cell phones. That's kind of what that track kind of brought me back to. And the best riff on the CD, though, I think, now don't get me wrong, Deja Voodoo is good, but To Freedom in Progress.
Yeah, that's a great song, too.
Very old school Goddard sound.
Yep.
I mean, just it took me back to the days of Lip Service and some of the older Goddard CDs. But Time and Tide, awesome. Dr. Hell No, great range of vocals for Steve Magini. Unfortunately, I have to kind of end the review on a negative note. Now, Jason, back to your bookends. To Be With You Once More is probably the worst selection they could have had to end this CD. It's a ballad that just kind of lays it flat. And I just thought it was a horrible way to end the CD. But overall, great tracks throughout. I should say good to great tracks throughout. Very listenable, very favorable to a party crowd. And amongst their other works, I think it stands well. So I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Well, let me give you my thoughts on it. Like I said a little bit ago, this is a band that I would be lying to you if I said I had listened to anything they've ever done.